especially my grandfather. My grandfather's mother's brother, him, which is William N. Godfrey, William Nat Godfrey, him and quite a few family members pooled their money together to purchase some land. And this land was being offered by the General Land Office for sale, and you could go in and buy it. And all the family members pooled their income, but they put the land in William N.'s name, William N. Godfrey's name, him and his wife. But all the family pooled their income, and it was several siblings, quite a few siblings, and their parents, who actually was born during slavery times. Their parents actually pooled their income also to put in to go ahead and purchase this land. And one section was 640 acres that they purchased on time on a payment plan. They also purchased an additional section of 320 acres of land to get that land as additional grazing land. These people were farmers. My family came up from farmers. They had to make application, which William N. Godfrey and his wife, they did do because they were capable of writing their name, and you know, they had education. They also not only had to make the application to purchase the land as an actual settler. Every so many months and periodically they had to make affidavits of improvements to prove that they were living on the land and they were improving the land, using the land as grazing land and farmland. They lived on the land. In fact, my grandfather lived on the land, my great-great uncle lived on the land, and they all worked together because they were a family. And as they worked on the land, they did their affidavits of improvements, which it had to be notarized when they filled out the form. Their signatures were notarized. They even had to have witnesses' signatures that were also notarized. An X overrides a real signature. An X overrides a real. Someone had to do a seismograph and discovered it had oil on the land. They didn't do it. They didn't instigate it. They just worked the land as farmers. But what happened, a series of events transpired that deprived them of their livelihood in that property. Whereas this was land that actually had oil on it, their livelihood was taken away because they were forced off the land by Caucasians. It was on a Sunday, so my great uncle tells me, my great uncle, Uncle Thomas, and I'll just say Uncle Thomas, told me that, and other family members told me, that it was at night on a Sunday night, and the men came up, rode up with guns and forced them off. And you have to think about, people will say, well, why would you just leave your land? But if you think about the times that happened, this was in the late 1800s, say early 1900s, but late 1800s. People of color could not stand up to anyone. Unlike at this time in the 1800s, late 1800s, even up to 1901, they were still lynching black people. In fact, between like 1889 and 1901, they would lynch maybe 100 black people a year. And some years it even topped 200. And that was for simple reasons, for talking back to a white person, or trying to sell your own cotton, or political assertiveness, or just simple things. And that was to keep them in fear and intimidated. But this is the time William N. Godfrey lived in, him and his family. And they had kids, they had family there. All they could do is leave. This was actually dated after the so-called fraudulent bills of sale. And it was supposed to be held by him and his family forever. But they didn't get a chance to enjoy any of it. As the Lord is my witness, they didn't get a chance to enjoy it. They tried to engage an attorney, which the attorney kept their paperwork and didn't do anything, and he had a possible conflict of interest. This is a copy of the patent that was given to William N. Godfrey from the governor, and it said that he had paid for his land in full, and that it was rightfully his and his descendants forever. Even though that's kind of ironic because he paid for it. And this patent was dated after the time the land was supposedly stolen with the land was stolen with these fraudulent X's, these fraudulent deeds. But it's ironic, it says that to him and his descendants forever, and the descendants, including myself, never even got a chance to enjoy any of that property because their livelihood was taken away because someone was greedy and didn't want a person of color to prosper. Here's receipts. My family has a lot of receipts. We have it all on paper. Or even after he was forced off at gunpoint, him, his wife, his siblings, his parents, his kids, the kids, when they were forced off the land, him being a man of integrity, them being a family of integrity, they continued to pay their obligation to the state. Here's receipts showing that even after their land was taken, he continued to pay and keep his word that he was going to pay for what he had applied for. And one other thing I want to show is that my ancestor, William N. Godfrey, this is a copy of his death certificate. He died at 67 in 1940. His wife died in 1954, Indiana Godfrey. But this ended his struggle to get back what was rightfully his. My struggle still goes on, even though it may be an uphill battle, and maybe everything is against us. But you know what? Just like William N. Godfrey didn't give up, I can't give up. I can't give up this unending struggle. I won't give up. I can't give up. But I'm not alone because the Lord is with me wherever I go. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. And I'm going to continue to pray. I'm going to continue to pray until the Lord makes something happen. Because it's in his, the righteous judge's hand. I'm going to keep on praying. No matter if I have to be by myself, I'm going to keep on praying to the Lord. I'm going to keep on praying to God to open doors. I'm going to keep on praying for God to show favor to those who were wrong, to make everything right. He is the righteous judge and he will make everything right. But I pray to him. He is my Lord and Savior. He's the one can change things. He's the one that can see me through. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. But at the time, what they were deprived of was their whole livelihood, things that they were making preparations for their family, trying to give their family a better way of life. And because of these events, the family has suffered. Not only my predecessors, my people that I'm descended from, not only them, but it still has repercussions even today. My grandfather, he worked all of his life. But it changed the quality of life by having this taken away from them, even though they were the rightful owners, having their property taken away, which was substantial property. And sorry to get emotional, but it still hurts because I look at my grandfather. My grandfather lived in a 2-room shack with no electricity, no water, no heating, no nothing. And he worked in someone else's fields, barely eking out a living, until he died at the age of 92 because he was born in 1890. He died working for someone else, just barely eking out a living. And he died of pneumonia out there working. How many people today is out there 90, 92 years old out there working? And this was my daddy's daddy. My daddy, we were raised in a 4-room shack, if you can call it moving up. But we had no running water. We had to go out to a hand pump well to get water. We had no indoor plumbing. Some winters were so cold, and we had a wood stove, a wood heater to warm by, but it affected all of us. Sometimes it would get so cold in the winter. If we didn't have money to get the pipes to put on the wood heater to vent outside, me and my older brother, we would have to get outside, and my dad would set up a barrel and start a fire in this burn barrel just so we could get warm to go to school, you know, to dress outside in the cold, but standing around this barrel, me and my older brother. And I can actually remember one particular time that it was really cold, and we were outside trying to get warm to get ready to go to school. And I was standing with my back to the burn barrel, and my brother told me, he said, "Your clothes are on fire." And I was just a kid. And the first thing, I just started running. But my mother heard my brother when he said that, and she ran outside and grabbed me because I was in flames. And she grabbed me and threw me to the ground and rolled me on the ground to put the flames out. Had she not did that, I wouldn't even be here today. But our family went through extreme poverty. My dad, per se, broke his back working on a pipeline, one of the major oil companies' pipeline. And he was without work for a long time, and he was never the same after then. Sometimes we did not eat. Food was very scarce. We didn't know if we could go fishing and catch fish. That was our meal. But through it all, we persisted and we persevered. But you look at a family that spent lifetime, and I've had so many loved ones go before me that went on, passed on from this world. And whereas I look at it, looking into my family's history, they should have been rich. They should not have to struggle. They should not have to suffer for not getting good medical care, or not getting good food, or not even getting good clothes. You don't, even back when I was coming up, kids used to laugh at us because our clothes were rags going to school. And all this stemmed from what was rightfully ours was taken away. And so instead of having a family that was self-sufficient and making their own way and forming their own destiny, they had to eke out a living by what other people dictated to them. And that made me even more interested in what happened with my family. And to go back to that story of what happened to my family, which the majority of them are gone, but the more I heard, the more I researched in it. And I asked them, like, why didn't y'all go back to the land? And I was told we went back several times, and we were always forced off it. We were not allowed to go back to our land. But what the family did, William and Godfrey and all the family, they continued to pay their obligation to the state for the land that they had made application for, and they were still paying for the property. And notarized, we have copies, family have. In fact, I made it a point to get notarized copies of these receipts for meeting their obligation to the state. But at the same time, as they were paying for their property, they tried to go back. And the last time, my great uncle told me, the last time they went back to the property, they could see they were beginning to fence, the people who had possession were beginning to fence it off. And they were even moving oil field equipment, drilling equipment on the property, which still goes back to tell me someone must have did a seismograph way before they forced them off the land. Now, back to how they were forced off the land. They tried to get help from the local authorities. They tried to get help from a lot of officials, but they always had a deaf ear turned to them. So they continued to pay their obligation on the land, continued to pay for it, even after they were forced off. But these were God-fearing people, people of integrity. At the same time, when it came time to get the certificates, the patents that was rightfully due them for paying on the land, they always believed, yes, the law is going to be on our side because we owned the land. We paid our obligation. We did what we were supposed to. Then they found out they didn't own it, only by local officials. And what was so killing and what can I say, a slap in the face, these are family members that could read and write, had some intelligence. At the same time, all these, which was put in play, which they did not know, all of these so-called deeds where they sold their property materialized. But for the irony of it, everything that the family had made application and showed the improvements, affidavits of improvements, all was with their signatures. Ironically, all the paperwork, these deeds of sale to people they didn't even know, never heard of the names, all these deeds of sale happened to be marked with an X, even though they could read and write. And when you look at the deeds of sales, and I looked at copies of the deeds of sale, the deeds were written in the same handwriting as the handwriting of the county clerk. And he witnessed it. And this was the same county clerk witnessed Mr. Godfrey's signature when he originally purchased the land. So how can you go from having your signature on something and this person witnesses and attests that it's true, and then here's documents materialize saying you sell the property and it only has X's on it in the same handwriting the deed was written in. And some of them none of them had Indiana Godfrey's signature on them either, his wife. They only extra pair of eyes to see this. A lot of documents are old, but our family has quite a few documents, and just a few of them I want to show to you, because the first one is going to show William N. Godfrey's actual signature, and that's when he made application to purchase as an actual settler on Section 66 on the payment plan, 640 acres. And if you'll notice the document that I'm going to show, actually, hopefully you can see this, but it has William N. Godfrey's signature here and page, and this was made to the state, and it was notarized, and it has William N. Godfrey's actual signature. Looks a little bit better than mine, but this is his actual signature when he made application to purchase the land. And then when he made application affidavit to purchase the 320 acres on Section 42, it also had his signature and 2 witnesses. So if you look at this, hopefully you can see this. It shows William N. Godfrey's signature. This is William N. Godfrey. It shows his signature. Another paper, affidavit of improvements. It shows, again, William N. Godfrey's signature. And actually, when we got copies of at the time, the General Land Office sent us copies of this. Here's his signature again. All papers that he did, his improvements and his applications, were in his handwriting. It had his signature. But now here, I'm going to show you quickly a few of the fraudulent documents that said he sold 320 acres in Section 66. Here's a handwritten document, and what's so killing about it, he sold 320 acres. Let me find the actual where it shows this actual deed. And it just shows, you might not can even see it, but it shows an X, a small X. And you'd have to really look at these close up. Anybody who ever wants to see the documents, I'm perfectly willing to show them to them, but here's a little small tiny X. And the county clerk who witnessed his signature actually had the same signature that wrote this document. Okay, here's the second one. Remember I said that it was 4, supposedly he sold it in 4 sections. This document here, it had, and I have a clear copy of it also. And these are notarized copies that came from the current county clerk or from the General Land Office. But it also showed that William N. Godfrey, and none of them has his wife's name on it, but this is another one. that showed in the same handwriting as the first one. And it showed that he supposedly sold his land. In fact, and here's the X. The person wrote his name on it in the same handwriting and just put an X on it. Even though, again, he could read and write. Here's the other document, the third one, that said he sold, a part of the land, the east section of Section 66, and neither William N. Godfrey nor his wife, Indiana Godfrey, signature was on it either. And here's this document. In fact, let me find the X so you can see it, because there it is. It doesn't even have, they didn't even bother putting that on there. It just showed that he sold the document, and this is it. Doesn't even have has a name or an X on it, that he sold it. And I guess he got kind of comfortable of whoever did this got comfortable with what he did. And all they did, same handwriting, you ought to start recognizing it by now, but what they did, they just wrote his name and then put an X on it and say, oh, he did this. But at the same time, he got the proof of occupancy from the General Land Office and said it was sufficient, and a certificate was issued. He also got certificates on all the land that he had made application for. Here is a copy here. I won't go into detail. Also, here is a copy of a patent letter from the state of who told him, William N. Godfrey, that this is a patent for him and his heirs in forever. This land has been paid for, duly paid for, and he is the owner of it. And it's recorded in the courthouse. As I go on in these papers, it kind of makes me emotional. This is actually a copy of the patent from the governor who said that William N. Godfrey had paid for his land in full, and it was thereby his to be held by him and his descendants forever. One thing else I want to show you, this is a map. And if you could look at this section that's outlined in black, this was the 640 acres and the 320 acres company's section that William N. Godfrey and his family purchased. If you'll even notice in this section that's outlined in orange, it still had William N. Godfrey on it. Some of the other places here that had oil wells, this came out of a booming oil field, but he had 640 plus the 320 acres. And it became a booming oil field. But this is what he went to his grave trying to get justice on. I want to show you now a copy of a map of the field that became a booming oil field, where William N. Godfrey's 640 acres in Section 66 and the 320 acres in Section 42 was located, the land that he was forced off at gunpoint. This actually that's in the black, it tells all the 640 and the 320, and if you look at it in the orange, it actually shows with William N. Godfrey's name still on it. And just like him, he didn't give up the fight, and he passed away. I don't know what the future holds or what God has in store for me. You know, William N. Godfrey spent the remainder of his life trying to get back what was rightfully his, trying to seek justice. And like I said, he never gave up the fight, and he has passed on. But me, myself, I won't give up the fight either. I trust in the Lord. Like an old song say, I will trust in the Lord until I die. He will either give me justice on this earth, but I know in the home that's yet to come, by his grace and his mercy, I will receive justice. And it won't be because you're not good enough because of the color of your skin. You're not good enough because of that. But while I am still on this earth, by the grace of God, I will trust in him. I will be on the battlefield, still fighting for what's rightfully my family's. And I pray that those who come after me, if the struggle isn't finished, that they will continue on. But take it, I will continue to trust in the Lord, and I pray, and I know, and I have faith that he will see me through. I trust in the Lord, and something came to mind. I pray to him every day. He is the leader of my life. He is all my hope. He is all my strength. And I do get emotional, but I do want to say one thing, because nobody but you, Lord. Nobody but you. Nobody but you, Lord. Nobody but you. When I was in trouble, you came to my rescue. Nobody but you, Lord. Nobody but you. Nobody but the Lord that I trust in. And it's nobody but the Lord can open this up so that everyone will see injustice and see the face of injustice. But God knows. And I just thank him for keeping me until this day, that I can still see that the road is still there for me to continue on, for my family to continue on the fight. But I'm not alone, because the Lord is with me wherever I go. I'm going to pray, and I'm going to continue to pray. I'm going to continue to pray until the Lord makes something happen, because it's in his, the righteous judge's, hand. I'm going to keep on praying. No matter if I have to be by myself, I'm going to keep on praying to the Lord. I'm going to keep on praying to God to open doors. I'm going to keep on praying for God to show favor to those who were wronged, to make everything right. He is the righteous judge, and he will make everything right. But I pray to him. He is my Lord and Savior. He's the one who can change things. He's the one that can see me through. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. As I was saying, forgive me for using my cane, but like I said, I had a career ending injury out in an oil field that actually should have been my family's. But because we were forced off the land. But I did write a paper, and I'm dependent upon a cane because of what happened on land that should have been my family's, but all for someone else. But I wrote this paper, and then in this struggle for justice, because those who had began this struggle, they're gone. They're gone on into glory. But I wanted those, when I started this journey on this particular thing, and it was not only that particular piece of property, but it was other pieces of property, and it was other families involved that had the same thing happen because they were people of color. And all of these properties ended up, just coincidentally, with, they brought prosperity to the people who forced the families off. But at the same time, I wrote this paper, An Unending Struggle for Justice, and I named it that because this has been, and my family, my ancestors didn't get protection under the law, not here, not in this world. But you know what? We that are left, like I said, I started this when I was in my 30s, when I was 30 years old, and now 65. But have I given up? No, I haven't given up. And I won't give up. That's why I titled it An Unending Struggle for Justice. So the family, those who come after me, will know the truth and will know what happened to their family and know how their family was cheated by those who even were in the position to protect them. But you know what? Even though mankind and man's laws failed them,